This podcast is brought to you by The Secret Meditation. Learn to get in touch with the magical frequency, the frequency that will change your life now. Find The Secret Meditation at www.thesecretmeditation.com. Hey everybody, this is Mark J. Ryan, and welcome to the Mark J. Ryan Experience. Today's podcast is The Secret of the Glistening Aspens. Hey everybody, this is Mark J. Ryan, and welcome to the second podcast of 2015. This one probably is not going to be too long, but again, you never know. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about time and different times of the year and these aspen trees when I go on my walk every morning that I go past. And in the summertime, these aspen trees are spectacular. They've got these little leaves. For those of you unfamiliar with aspen trees, they're usually not too tall. These are probably 20, 30 foot tall. And they're usually not really wide at the base. They're more thin trees. And they've got little leaves that are kind of roundish. And they're close together, and there are a lot of them in full bloom. On a nice summer day, spring day, fall day, when you walk by them, they've got all these green leaves. And the other side of the green leaves almost has, at least the ones at this guy's house, has a kind of a little silverish almost tint to it. So as they wave back and forth in the wind, you can see the contrast between the green and then the green silver side, and it goes back and forth. But to me, when I get near the trees, and they're my favorite trees on the walk, and there are some spectacular, beautiful pines and cedars and oaks along the way, but for some reason these trees get me every time I go by them. They make this noise, this just the leaves moving, touching each other, rustling together. A lot of times when I'm walking by, I'll just stop for a little bit, close my eyes, and just the sound of the aspens rustling just seems to go through my body and puts me in touch with something that is beyond, whether it's beyond time, beyond the walk, what I'm feeling, whatever. It's just a real unique experience. And it's funny, as I'm coming up, I can see them moving. But then as I get closer, I begin to hear it, and the combination of seeing it and hearing it together really, really has an effect on me. The thing I'll do is, a lot of times if I walk a certain way, the sun has to be at a certain point in the sky to really get the effect. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll turn around and look at them from a different angle, because the way the sun's shining on them gives the tree a whole different effect. And then as the fall begins to come, the trees start to yellow up, really nice bright yellow, maybe a little bit of orange in there, and it usually goes pretty quick. They change and they drop fairly quick. It's from green to the yellow, and then dropping happens in a short period of time. So I really will tend to slow down a little bit more and appreciate what they've given me over the summertime, and then what they're going to give me for the short period of time as they change colors, and still hearing the rustle of the wind and the sound as the leaves begin to dry out and change color also has a little bit different of a sound to it too. And then I really forget about the trees, because they don't have the part that appeals to me. But yet the tree and the trees and what they offer is still there. And I started thinking about the other day on the walk, and I realized, wait a minute, this is the same trees that I'm kind of walking by and ignoring them because they don't have necessarily the beauty right now. But they've had it for the 5 years that I've been there, in the summertime, in the spring, in the early fall, and then as they go through transition. And it's going to happen again this next spring. So everything in it that gives me joy and pleasure and a peace and that sense are still within those trees, still within those aspens. So what stops me from seeing that? And the last week or so, I've been going by the trees and looking at them in a different way and kind of superimposing the joy that they give me during different times of the year. And for 6, 7 months or whatever it is, 6 months, let's say, that they don't have any leaves on it, or there isn't anything that peak, that pinnacle of what that tree represents, is just something that I see. And what about that tree might be happening that I don't see, that I haven't seen? And so as I went by, I considered that, and again, superimposed it, and was thankful to these trees for the experiences that they've given me in my mind's eye, in my body, but also kind of projecting it outwards and being thankful for them, even though they're bare and they're gray right now. And then yesterday, I was walking by them, and as I started to come from a certain position, because I can, walk what we call a loop, the 2-mile loop. I can walk it one way or I can walk it another. And like I said, the angles of the sun that's hitting it makes it look different. Well, it got pretty cold yesterday. It was really cold. And the humidity's been way up. We have what they call temperature inversions, and a lot of times the warmer air will go on top and the colder air will fall on the bottom. And a lot of times the smoke will stay there, and these inversions can cause different effects. And then sometimes we get it coming from the ocean, even though we're about 150 miles away. The humidity from the ocean with these inversions can be real heavy. And that morning I remember looking and seeing that it was 84% humidity, which is pretty high here, unless it's raining outside or snowing, where most of the time the humidity is in the 30s, and it can get down into I've seen it get down, 17s in the 20%. So really dry in the summertime. But it was spectacularly high, and the sun was out. So, I mean, there was a few jet trails in the sky and things like that, but basically it was a blue sky, and the sun was shining, but to see the humidity up that. So a lot of times we'll get that morning dew, and then it was below freezing, so we get the freeze. And as I'm walking around, everything has got a nice coating on it. Everything's got a nice kind of a frost coating on it. And as I was walking around the last part of the journey, the way I was going, the trees that I usually see with leaves on them, as I started to come around, the sun was hitting the trees just in the right way, where it was like they were made out of glass crystals from top to bottom. They were covered with this ice from the dew and from the humidity. They were covered. And it had I got a helicopter coming in across the street from a hospital, sitting, waiting for my wife in Redding, California. She had an appointment down here, so I decided to hang out, but we got a emergency helicopter coming in. It should tone down in a little bit. But anyways, we had the trees that normally full of leaves. Here I am in the wintertime, when if we do comparison as human beings, we look and see how dull and just the color and things kind of are dormant and in a certain phase. But this morning, they were spectacular. The way the sun was hitting them, the little rainbows and lights and the clear, it looks like they were made of glass or crystal. And I just sat there. I didn't sit there. I actually stood there and just was in awe of the circumstances being right, and me being in the right place at the right time and looking at it from the right angle with the sun and everything and hitting. And just stood there and observed it and appreciated the trees and said, wow, this is even more spectacular than what I see in the summertime. So a lot of it comes down to the perspective, and are we looking for it? Are we expecting it? Are we being open to receiving that from so many different things in life? I look and I say, there's something like that going on in your environment around you at all times. Are you aware enough of it to really see that? Was the preparation of me starting to say, what else can I appreciate about these trees? How else can I see it? And as I walked past the trees, and I actually took some pictures of it, hopefully they came out good. The sun was in the background, so a lot of times it makes what's in front dark. But as I went a little further down the street, and the way I would turn around and look at them in the summertime to see that different angle and get the different angle on them, as I turned around, the sun wasn't hitting them in the same way because I'd gone past it and there was no reflection of it there. So they were back to the gray trees. But if I'd walked probably 20, 30 yards, maybe 50 yards back where I was, there would be that angle where I could have a spectacular view of the ice crystals on every part of that tree, covering it, and then glowing and shining and glimmering in the sun. It was there, but was I at the right angle for it? And one of the reasons I bring this up is because, right now meditation and neuroscience is really becoming big. We're seeing the actual ways of changing ourselves and how change occurs. And what I've been doing with hypnosis and NLP is working what they're discovering now. They're kind of proving the why it worked and how it works in the brain, but not actually how it is happening. What do they have to do to get it to work? They can see it working, and they can see different things being successful and how it does change the mind, but the how is still there. That's not as, how could I say, it's not as prevalent, it's not as open, it's not as known. But to us doing NLP and working with people like John Overdurf, we've known the how for a long time, but we didn't have the proof. And the meditations now, using the neuroscience, we're finding out that a lot of times these meditations, how they work and what they do in the mind and how it can improve your life, take stress away for one thing, but also to put you in different states and moods in the mind. And one of the things that I did with the secret meditation is that I noticed that what that meditation does is similar to what happened with that tree yesterday. If you do the meditation in the proper way, it brings out something from your mind's eye. It gives you, by following the directions, it gives you that angle of perspective. And what that will do to you as that light comes from within and you get that spectacular angle to see things in ways that you haven't seen them before. And that's what it's about. When you have a new car, you have a brand new car, you see it in a way that you don't see it 5 years later. You just don't have the same feelings. But what if you could discover, and what if you had a way of seeing it like that all the time, of experiencing it like that all the time? And then let's expand out to say with people and relationships, in earth in general, in life in general, and what we're doing here and why we're here. And what happens is those are kind of like timeless things. It's a timeless thing that begins to happen. And yeah, we're limited in time because obviously the weather is going to change over a period of time and it's going to evaporate and I'm not going to see those ice crystals, and the leaves are there for a season and they change and they shift. But there's always something there to see that maybe I haven't quite seen yet. And with the secret meditation, the reason that I put it out, and now I've got some other meditations that are going to be based on that, working up and saying, okay, here's some things you're adding to, pretty well into the second one that goes along with it. And really, it doesn't need anything more. But people are asking me, what can I do with it? What can I do now? And I'm like, okay, here's some things that you can do. And I'll be putting that out. But what the secret meditation does is it brings some kind of light from within you that shines on things in your life. And that if you could begin to hold that space of the secret meditation as you go through your life, which we're going to be talking a little bit more about coming up, and in using this. But people are having these incredible experiences. I get into the state of awe. I just get into the state of awe. Well, these are like timeless states. Well, what do you do with those timeless states? And they want to know, what do you do? And sometimes I was like, well, God, enjoy the awe for a while. Enjoy the awe for a while. Bring it with you. And it's like an internal. And if you go back and listen to the last podcast that I talked about the internal telescope, and there's some cities that if you're in, and I use that as equivalent metaphor for your mind. How cluttered is your mind? How much stress do you have going on? How much cortisol do you got running through your body? Some people live in places where there's a lot of light pollution and they can't see the stars. And other people live in places where they can see the stars very clearly because they're in the middle of nowhere and there's not much light pollution. Mount Shasta is a place like that where you look up and you just say, wow, I cannot believe how spectacular these stars are. And you feel sorry for people in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore and New York City that can't look up and see the stars as you're seeing them. And what the secret meditation is meant to do is to get you to see a different type of light, to get you to have that awe and that spectacular feeling there. But it also brings with it an information. It also textures you. It textures your body. It textures your mind, your thoughts with something lasting. You know, that as you begin to incorporate it more and more into your life, it brings you into a state, it brings you into an awareness where you can start to have more of those synchronicities, have more of those things where in the midst of, if you were in your mind thinking, you may have walked right by those trees and not even noticed them. But when you're doing the secret meditation, it has something where it shines a light, it brings an awareness, it makes you turn your head for some reason where you normally wouldn't turn your head. I'll tell you a story. Years ago, you may have heard the story before if you've listened to me for years. I was taking my sister out west. She'd never been out west, and I took her out west. We went together and drove. And had a little car, had a little Volkswagen Rabbit, I think at the time, a little red Rabbit, and it was manual. And we were in western Colorado, and I was going pretty fast because I could see that the sun was going down over the mountains. But I wanted to kind of get her on the west side of the mountains going more towards the Four Corners area because we'd catch a sunset and get a spectacular sunset, but we were still in the mountains. And so I'm going pretty fast. My sister's going, what are you going so fast for? And I said, just wait, you'll see. And I'd get going and I'd get up to the top of on the road and, you know, kind of going over a pass and looking, ready for that big, wide, expansive open view. And there was another range of mountains. And so then I'd go a little faster, and I'm going faster, and it's getting stressed out. She's saying, slow down. It's not a big deal. It's only a sunset. And I'm like, no, I want to show you this. This is going to be great and spectacular. And after like the third, I realized after like the third mountain range that I'm probably not going to get to this. And the energy that I'm putting forward and putting into getting there to see this, to show her something, wasn't going to happen. And I just kind of surrendered to it and just said, okay, what I wanted at this point is not going to happen. We're still in a beautiful area of the state. It's starting to get dark and everything. And a voice came into my mind, clear voice, and said, you know, you're focused. You're so focused on going forward and going fast and getting to that sunset, what you want, what your goal is, what your plans are. What is happening right now around you that you're not even aware of because you're so focused on that? And that voice said to me, turn around, look around. And I'm driving, so I, kind of look to my right, and there's my sister, and look there. And then I turn to my left, and over my shoulder, I see this spectacular moonrise, full moon. And I look down below, and even though it's getting dark, the moon was so bright that you could see a shade of green in the valley below. And so I immediately slowed the car down and pulled it over. My sister's like, now what are you doing? You're pulling over in the middle of nowhere. We're just here. I said, just trust me for a minute. Just trust me. And I pulled over, parked the car, and she goes, what are you doing? You're parked on a hill. It was a still steep incline. And I said, let's just get out of the car for a minute and tell me what you notice. And she's like, jeepers creepers, Anyways, I stopped. I got out of the car, and stood by the side of the road, and she got out and stood, and she goes, oh my gosh, thank you so much for stopping. I said, yeah. I said, let's just sit here and watch this for a while. Then I took a picture, but obviously the picture, back then the camera that I had was probably one of those instant ones that didn't come out too well. But the experience of this moon looking huge on the horizon, full, bright as I've ever seen one, and the green that was in the valley, the texture of the moonlight, the last little bit of sunlight, and the kind of yellowness in the sky all hitting down in that valley at the same time was spectacular. And I've been after that. That's something that I've been after for a long time, that I know that it's there, and I know that it's going on constantly in your life, in my life. It's here. It's the magic. But we are so focused on what we want and what's ahead and what we think we're going to get and what we think we're going to get out of that. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we see I go to the beach and I'll look, and it's a spectacular sunset. But sometimes our mind is cluttered and full of different things, full of the light pollution, the audio pollution, static, noise, thoughts about, well, what am I going to do tomorrow at work, and what about the kids? And it just all comes in there, and it's competing for your attention, and it's looking for an identity that goes with that attention. You start thinking about stuff with your kids, and then you become a parent, and that identity of a parent and the worry that goes with it, and the proudness of the children, and there's an identity. But then you go to work and you're an engineer, or you're delivering potato chips from Lay's or whatever it is, and there's a different you, there's a different identity. There's all these competing identities since you were a little kid, stuff that's still back there that's working that you don't need anymore. We call them empty habits, and they're you just don't need them anymore, but they're still competing for the attention that's there. What I've done with the secret meditation, and why meditation in general works so well, there's thousands of different meditations that can get your awareness focused and your attention focused on different things, which produce different results. And what I noticed about this, since I just first discovered it years and years ago, back in the early 80s, was that it had a way, like people say, of putting me in a state of awe. But the awe, why was it awe? Why are these people going into this spectacular states, spiritual states of awe? It does something with time. It pulls you out of time somehow. It puts you in a timeless, before words. I got another helicopter. This one's taken off. This time it's going over my head. But it puts you in a place where the words can't necessarily describe it. It's a being. It's an experience that's there. And how it does that is it takes the competing light pollution and dissipates it. It gives you a way to see through it. It gives you a way to have an angle, kind of like that tree yesterday, where the sun and the position that I'm in and the position of the trees are and the way the light's hitting it, and the spectacular vision of that. And we all know what that is and what that feels like. And what I'm looking for is to say, what if it doesn't depend on how beautiful that tree looks? What if it doesn't depend on somebody saying the right words to you, or winning the lottery, or something happening spectacular, or getting your goals, or getting what you want, whatever? That regardless of all that stuff, that this is available to you, this feeling, this sense of wonderment, and that through that light, through that vision, through that angle, through that meditation, you are able to bring that in and have that shine on your thoughts, your mind, the people in your life, and what you see in life, and that it brings out the glisten, so to speak, is a metaphor, the glisten, the noise of those leaves rustling in the wind, that it brings that to your life. That the more you do it, the more you meditate like that, the more you get in that state of mind, that the external part, which is really internal, comes out and shines from you outwards, and the reflection back is a reflection of who you are. That the reflection that you see on something that at once you may have thought was ugly or had no relevance, that when this light you're in and it's reflecting into your world through what you see, hear, feel, smell, through your senses, through your experience and beyond your senses, beyond words, that it has a certain type of reflection, that it has a certain type of feeling associated with it, and then your world begins to happen differently. Now, when I say happen differently, you know that if you're in a bad mood, a lot of times your day goes in a bad way, and that everybody seems to sense that you're in a bad mood. The tree sense to, the bird does when it does a dropping on your head or your shoulder, and you're like, what more could happen? It's almost like, well, you're in a state where you're reflecting what it is, and the life around you is going to kind of conform to that. Not that that happens all the time, but also when you're in a great mood, in a great day, and you're in flow, and you're going, everything seems, the green lights all line up. You don't have to stop. It happened to me the other day. I'm like, okay, that has never happened where I have hit every single one the whole way through. And I could feel there was a part of me that was getting anxious, almost like I was a betting man, like I'm going to roll the dice and hit, 10 sevens in a row, hitting these, and it's like, no, okay, that's the feeling that wants to come in and kind of take the experience away of, if it turns red, it turns red. It's not about a goal. It's about being in the experience and staying in the now and not going, will I make it through all 10? Well, I've already put myself in the future. It's being in the present and reflecting it of what's happening as I go through each one, and having it go through like all those in a row and say that's incredible. That's like never happened. And how cool was that, going at a certain speed? Now, for you, it's going to be something different. And that's the amazing thing about it is that when I talk to people, say, well, what's it going to do? And I say, well, I can give you a little bit of a sense of what it's going to do. And this is whether you do any meditation or not. I just happen to have a big preference of using it over the many years, the secret meditation. It's going to be different for each one of you. It's kind of like Christmas, you don't give everybody the same present. Some people do. Here's a $25 gift card at Target or some store or whatever. But you have different ways of having wants and needs, but also different ways of having this proved to you. And the amazing thing is that as you start to enter these states and you get into it and you work with this stuff, it has a sense of knowing you, or you knowing it, and it knows specifically what you need to get more of it, to be encouraged to go more in that direction. So instead of being led by, the money and the wealth and the things of the world, not that you won't have those, and not that those go away, they will exist simultaneously, but at the same time, you're going to be encouraged to enter these states, because you realize that these states, these places that you get into, that goes timeless, beyond time. There's a part of you that goes, that's more of who I am. Let me put it to you in this sense. Let's say you have a loved one and you want to hear him say something to you, certain words you just would be great, or you'd like to have a certain automobile, or you'd like to win the lottery, and you say, okay, that completes me. And that's what we think does. And it does, like I said with the new car earlier, it does temporarily do that. But just think about if you won the lottery and you won $100 million and you got or more, or a little bit less, but enough where you go, and you could just feel this relaxation of worry gone, of not having to think about paying your bills. And some people might worry and go, now what am I going to do with all this money? But just think of the positive aspect of it, of all the things that you can do, of all the things, how you can help people, help your family, your friends, have parties, maybe own a nice house, and just the relaxation that you feel. There's a feeling, there's a state that by you wanting those things, you attain something that releases and something opens up inside you. Now, there is that same thing going on with let me to finish that. Let me back up a second. There's a part of you that when you get that, even temporarily, it's so intense that you go, this is more of me. Like something of you comes out, something of you opens up, and you go, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. This is who I want to be. And what I'm saying is what we're discovering and what's happening with meditation is that, yes, you can still have all those great things in life and work towards those. But what if those feelings are available to you all the time and they're not dependent on here, but if you can access a timeless part of who you are, you start to wake up and go, this fits in that void much better. This is even more powerful. So yeah, those little things that you want in life, what you want for your relatives, what you want somebody to say, what you want to say to somebody, all those things matter. And yet there's a spiritual part of you, or a part that's bigger than you, that also has kind of like its wants and needs. And if you allow it to exist within you, and you go to those states and you attain those states, that it also gives you what you need to keep going. There's something that goes with it that fits in there. That puzzle piece fits much better. The other ones are close fits, but then maybe you got a puzzle piece and you fit in there and you go, boy, that's it. That fits perfectly. And then after a while, you start to look and you go, that's not really it. And you take the puzzle piece out and you say, I'm still looking to fill that puzzle piece, that void that's there to complete the picture, and it's not there. And what I'm saying is, as you experience the meditation, as you go through that, as you get into these timeless states, as you get in, you start to realize, no, this fits perfectly. This is it. I want more of this. So it doesn't stop you from going out and having a job and paying your bills and getting the cars and the trucks and the houses and everything that you want. However, now you realize there's something simultaneously going on that is more of who you are, and you know it personally. That's why I say I can't tell you what that is going to be, but what I can tell you is I've experienced it enough in different times in my life, sometimes just tremendously, that it is an encouragement. It's a carrot to keep going, that you're on the right track, because you might be able to explain it to somebody else and it doesn't mean the same thing to them. Some people like the Green Bay Packers, some people like the San Francisco Giants. You talking about your love for the Green Bay Packers may not trigger anything with the person with the San Francisco that likes the San Francisco Giants, or somebody likes a certain pair of shoes and you don't like those kinds of shoes. We all have different preferences. Well, the way that meditation and the spiritual thing works is in a very similar way, but it's a kind spirit that knows exactly what it needs to do to convince you, if you will knock, and the door will be opened. That's the idea of you taking the first step towards it. It encourages you. It might not give you that, but what I find a lot of the times, most of the times, it gives me something a little bit different, but yet go, that fits better in place. And then it becomes a game. It becomes a journey. It becomes entertainment to say, what do I need to do, and how do I need to shift and change myself, and how do I need to grow? Or is there anything to do other than just putting my attention on it? And a lot of times it's just putting your attention and your awareness there, and it happens naturally. So I've taught a lot and put a lot of DVDs out there of how to make things better for people while they're living here, during the process of getting this. If people say, okay, we're meant to be enlightened, we're meant to be, awake on this earth. My philosophy is, okay, but in the meantime, what are we going to do? So I like to do work with people if they're having issues and problems that solves that, but also gives them an opening at the same time to say, is there anything more that might be available to you than this? You've solved this problem. We've cleared this up by coaching. Is there anything more? And so what a lot of times that I'll do is I'll put little things in there where people say, well, tell me more. You said this. Tell me more about that. and how they can do both. How can you make your life better here, and how can you also be connected at the same time with who you really are when you leave this place. Now, some people believe we're just gone, but hopefully I'm talking to people that believe there is something beyond. And I say that beyond is in existence right now, and you can tap into that right now and do both simultaneous. You know, there's those optical illusions where you see one thing and they say keep looking at it and the other thing will kind of pop. It's like that. It's like the optical illusions where you think in the foreground this is it, but then when you look at it long enough and all of a sudden it pops, you go, oh my gosh, there was something there the whole time that I never even recognized. And what I'd like you to do is see that what's in the background and recognize that. The other thing is there becomes a point where they are going on simultaneously. And they call it a balancing or the razor's edge, and to stay at that place where you can have both occurring simultaneously, where they say, well, you can't see both pictures at the same time. And I say, yes, you can. I've been there. I've seen both pictures of this. I've seen the cube inside. I've seen the cube outside. I've seen them inside and outside simultaneously. I've seen them as lines. There's different ways of looking at it, but we have been conditioned a lot to look at it in certain ways. And I'm saying, let's play the game of let's try it the other way. You can always go back to the way you are. You don't have to change. You don't have to switch. But if there's something else out there, aren't you a little bit curious to what I'm saying and to what other people are saying? As I say, there's these other experiences out there, and you're here for what we see and think is a limited period of time. What if you could discover something that makes this life much richer, makes your experience with this life much richer, no matter how much time you have left, no matter what condition your body or your mind is in or whatever, that you're going to add to it. That something unique and different is there that then begins to make you look and experience this life in a whole new spectacular way, like those trees with the crystals and the light shining on it and just the beautiful rainbow colors I would see in there, and it was surreal. And to say that's available in a different area of your life, unique to you, specialized to you, every one of you, where it will be proven to you in the way that you need it to be proven and understood, and many times even much more so than you realize. That's when you realize, like, I want something. You hear that thing, well, thank God for unanswered prayers. There was a country and western song that was out, 15, 20 years ago, maybe longer. Thank God for unanswered prayers. You know, God, I'd want to be with that person. She's the one for me. He's the one for me. And then later on, you find somebody else, and then you find out things about it, and you go, oh my gosh, thank God. You know, recall car. You wanted a certain car, but then you find out that it's certain. You go, thank God for unanswered prayers. So a lot of times we look and say, well, we didn't get what we want. And then I say, but did you get more than what you wanted? And if you're really honest, and as you go on this path, you're going to find that you get more than what you want. And it's in your own unique way. And to realize there's something higher that knows what you need, who you are, better than this body and mind that we have here. Not that they're always out of sync, but you start to understand and want to align with that part of you that knows. It just knows, and it knows you say, I want this, but it knows that if you, I want the brown vehicle, but it knows if you had the royal blue vehicle, that the experience is going to be much better for you. And you think you lost out on something, but when you experience it, you go like, whoa, wait a minute. I like this a lot more, something new. You will begin to experience that more and more. So check out the secret meditation. If not, just start doing some meditation and get that light pollution and get those angles lined up and corrected and start to see this in a different way. I just got a phone beep, which means a text, which means my wife is ready to be picked up. So I think it's perfect timing. I'll let you go for this time and hope to talk to you again soon. Please send me questions, comments, ideas, if you like this, if you don't like it, what you might be able to add to it. And it's great talking to you. Thanks for listening to me. We'll talk to you again soon. This is Mark J. Ryan. Take care. Blessings. Bye-bye.
This podcast is brought to you by The Secret Meditation. Learn to get in touch with the magical frequency, the frequency that will change your life now. Find The Secret Meditation at www.thesecretmeditation.com.